Hello, everybody. Thanks for coming to this evening's session about teaching online. This is Sophie. I'm the Professional Development Manager at English Australia, and I'd like to introduce our presenter for tonight, Lindsay Clandfield. Some of you may have come to Lindsay's session on Tuesday, but for those of you who didn't, Lindsay is a writer, teacher trainer, and international speaker in the field of English language teaching. He's written many books, course books for students, such as New English File and Global, and he's co-written various methodology books for teachers, especially about teaching online. Lindsay was an early adopter of teaching online. He told me that he's been doing it for about 18 years now, and he's been helping people to teach online for more than 10 years with the Consultants E. So thanks for coming along this evening, Lindsay. Before I pass over to you, I'd just like to direct people to our webinar library where you can find the recording of this session from tomorrow and also the recording of the session that happened on Tuesday night about teaching online with Lindsay. So that's the link to our webinar library.
Okay,
And,
hello.
sorry, Lindsay, one more thing.
Yeah.
I paused for too long. And I'd also like to invite people to join the English Australia EdTech SIG Special Interest Group Facebook group, where people have been discussing about teaching online. And we can also continue the conversation after this webinar about any ideas that come up here. So that's the link for joining that. Okay, Lindsay, passing over to you now. So I'll make you the presenter.
All right. Sophie, I want us at the end, you can still hear me, yeah? I want us
Yes.
at the end to go back. Let me just make sure, can everyone see? You can see my screen now, yes?
Yes,
And can you see it's all full screen now?
it is.
Yes, okay. Sophie, at the end of our talk, at the end of my session, I'd like to go back to you showing your slides for a particular reason. It's to do with Mac and Windows and PowerPoint. That will be of interest to people when we talk about using a webinar and breakout rooms and displaying things, okay? So keep your
Sure
slides
thing.
open. I want to go back to those because there's something that you have on a Windows version that I don't have on a Mac. Okay, hello everybody. My name is Lindsay. And I was with many people from English Australia last week talking about making the move online in a hurry, which is what is happening to many people around the world. I'm from Canada, but I'm based in Spain. We are on day 10 of our lockdown. They say on the news it's the strictest lockdown in Europe, although most countries in Europe have closed schools. We're now at a state where we can't go out in the street more than one person at a time and only for groceries and stuff. From a teaching point of view, that has meant that I, as a teacher, have been doing some classes online that I wouldn't normally have done. I've also got my kids, teenagers in the house. One is at university, in second year university. The other one is in high school, so 16 and 19. They have both started their online classes. Their classes have gone online, so I've seen how their different teachers have coped and what they're doing with it. And also, I've been talking to various teachers that I've trained, that I'm in contact with in groups and stuff like that, about how different people are doing it. In this session, we are going to be looking at using course books and breakout rooms. Okay, so we're going to start by talking about using course books. I am working from the assumption in this session, and this is important for everyone to realize, this is a session about teaching online in this situation. Okay, the situation that many teachers around the world are now facing is classes have been interrupted and people have to suddenly switch to teaching online. So the whole part about course books, I am envisaging that you have been teaching with a course book. So the first part about course books is teaching with a course book, and now you can't meet them anymore, so you have to be online. This is different than a session there where you might be looking at, hey, maybe our school in the future will do an online course, and you have more of a luxury of time, of setting things up, of building a system, of having everything perfect, of it being important for it to go well, and so on and so forth for a launch. At the moment, this is like emergency online teaching. It's sort of like from one week to another, you've got to do stuff online. So that's what I'm helping out with. The second part is going to be about breakout rooms. breakout rooms is one possible solution for getting speaking practice done in live online classes. For example, with a tool like Zoom, which is what most people are talking about using, most teachers are wanting to use, although there are other options. And so I'll be touching on those and giving ideas, explaining how breakout rooms work and give you ideas on how to make them work for you. Okay, let's get started. So the first thing is, I showed this slide last week, and I want to just cover it again very briefly on the different options when you're suddenly being asked to teach online. So, and I put this from what I consider to be most simple to most complex, but the truth is that there's probably a mix depending on what your school already has. The quickest way of probably moving everything online is to set up some kind of shared document, for example, a Google Doc, or like a kind of a Google Drive or something like that, or a shared page where you put information, and you maybe email or message all the students and say, okay, for this week, your information for the class is here. And that's how many teachers do, like the first thing that they do. That's kind of can be set up in half an hour and then run. Next thing would be using a group or a forum. So finding a website where you could have a forum that could be in a private Google group thing. It could be in Google Classroom. It could be in a Facebook group. Some people have already a WhatsApp group with their students. And so they use that to send out information and assign things from their course book or from their course. Many teachers may already have a learning management system. The most common one is Moodle. That's the one that most schools will be using, but Blackboard is the name of another one, which costs money. Learning management system is not something that you can build in a hurry. One of the free options that teachers can make is called Edmodo. But again, this is not something that you could do like from one day to the next really easily. However, it is something that many teachers may already have and have underused. So many teachers at universities, for example, you may already have a learning management system where you're dropping documents and maybe collecting some things, but you might be forced to use it a lot more. And then finally, the live lessons. This is using a platform like what we're doing now, where you come online at a certain time, they all join you, maybe on webcam or off webcam, and you deliver your lesson like that. So let's look at our different options. Let's begin with the most simple. Your schools have closed as of Monday. You've had meetings last week and nobody really knows what to do, or you have your own private students and private groups and you need to do this all in a hurry. Simplest way, get a document up and email. You have a regular updatable shared document. So when I say that, I mean something like Google Docs. On that, you assign your student book and probably lean more on a workbook if you're using a course with a workbook. In this case, I would say at the document at the top, give them a schedule, like week of March 23rd. These are the things that we need to have done. And I'll be going through examples, and then maybe convert some speaking activities into mini writings for the students to email you or share with you in other ways. So the tools here would be a shared doc and email. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, so how do I do the speaking? If you only have this at the beginning, you don't do the speaking. You have to convert the speaking into other ways, okay? We'll look at how we add the speaking later. But here's an example of a task which I had converted. So this is a speaking task from a general English course book. I'm aware many of you teach academic English, but you may have a similar structure of a task where they have to ask questions or give a summary of what the group says. So here's a speaking task about driving. So there you have a series of questions. Do you think you're a good driver? Can you live without a car, etc., etc. This is from an intermediate class book. And in the speaking task, they would work in a pair and then do with another pair and use the language that was in the course book, like both of us, neither of us, etc., and give feedback. So how would I do this as an email task? I would put them in the shared doc. I would say you're going to do course book page, whatever. For the final speaking, follow these instructions. You need to find a family member or a friend you can interview. I would say you can do this in English, preferably, or in your own language if you can't. The English will come later. So then you do 11A with them, and you have to talk at least for 3 minutes. If you can't do it orally, find a person to interview via WhatsApp. Again, if we had a WhatsApp group or my students were all using WhatsApp, I'd say try to do it orally via WhatsApp with a partner. And then you need to write an email with a summary of your discussion, follow the instructions in 11B. You see those there, give a summary, both of us, neither of us, etc. Send the email to the teacher, write 50 to 75 words. I would skip part C in this scenario, okay? So many of these speaking ones where you have to do something with a partner and then report back, I would change these to be them doing it with somebody else and then sending me the email. Again, I'm going to talk about common teacher concerns about these things. I know some of you are saying, so how do I know if they've really done it? The answer, you don't know if they've really done it. Okay, so but my hope is, in my experience, for every 1 or 2 students that don't do something like this, there's probably 6 or 7 that are trying to do it, you know, the ones that want to learn. We're going to talk about troubleshooting a bit later, but just anticipating some of those kind of worries at the moment. So that's a sample activity change for email. Let's look now at another option. In this option, we're using a forum. So you maybe have your document where you're sharing things, or a page, or a Google Classroom, or you have a Facebook group and you have a Moodle, and you have a forum or a series of forums where students can post and answer each other. So here you would, again, do your weekly assignment of the student book and workbook if you have one, and you would change some activities to a forum type activity that you can monitor and give a deadline. In addition, I would also have, if you are using forums, I would have at the top a question and answer forum where students can ask questions about the course in general, or you can have a frequently asked questions forum where students can address the tutor. But then you'd have other individual forums underneath for the different tasks, okay? Let's see how this looks then. Here's a sample speaking activity changed for a forum. On the right, this is an activity from a course book. This is from a pre-intermediate course book. Here, there's a questionnaire. Questionnaires are very common in course books. They're a common speaking activity. In this questionnaire, it's sort of an adapted questionnaire, so they have to read the questions and then add another thing themselves. So for example, if you're looking at this on a phone and can't really read it, the first question says, what do you prefer to put on food? A, ketchup, B, mustard, or C, blank. And the students have to complete the C's in class and then kind of get up and interview other people with a partner, okay? Now, oops, so how does this work? I would assign the course book. They would do that, the reading and stuff probably by themselves. I would choose one of the speaking activity, one of the sentences. So I would say, I'm going to start the forum. I would put, what do you prefer to put on food? Ketchup, mustard, or spicy sauce? Then they need to choose a sentence from speaking activity 9, copy it and add their own idea and post it in the forum group. But the next person after that needs to answer and then post their own question. The next person answers, then post their own question. The next person answers. So what you get in the forum is a chain. This also works in a WhatsApp type thing. So the WhatsApp one, I've done an activity like this called This or That, where I would put something like coffee or tea, and the next person who comes along in the WhatsApp writes tea and gives a reason. And then they ask the next thing, like Apple or Android, and the next person says Apple, and then they write a reason, and then they say something or other. This is the same thing. So adapting this questionnaire where one person asks a question, the next person answers the question and asks a new question. The next person answers and asks. I give a deadline. You have until Friday. I give an instruction. Everybody has to ask one question, and I begin the activity. So these activities, I would have, like I've done courses where I've had one of these kinds of activities in the forum running per week. And again, very strict sort of guidelines. I'll come to like setting up these kinds of activities for teachers. Another thing that some teachers have started doing, again with forums or WhatsApp groups or whatever, is assigning the student's book and workbook, but assigning speaking and other activities to do in pairs via audio, okay? And then perhaps trying to get them to report back either by written or sending an oral report. I'm going to come to that in a moment. So, for example, my son was assigned a partner to do several of the English speaking activities over WhatsApp audio. So, on the Google Classroom page, it said, I've assigned you into pairs. This is your partner. You have to contact your partner, and you have to do exercises, whatever, X, Y, and Z together. And then they were going to kind of check back with an email or a summary or usually these were kind of activities where they had to create something afterwards, like write a summary of your thing, but do the oral stuff together, okay? So this works with a forum, a group, or a Google Classroom, or an instant messaging service. Another possibility, and I know some teachers have started doing this, is creating out of the speaking, make those individual turns and ask people to record them. Okay, so you adapt some pair work tasks to be a single turn. By single turn, I mean what you just do it yourself and record it. And you have the students record their answers via audio or video to share. So before I tell you about the tools, if I looked at that food questionnaire, if I was doing this by myself and I wanted to audio, I would say, what do I prefer to put on food? Ketchup, mustard, or spicy sauce? I prefer spicy sauce. I don't like mustard, and ketchup is too sweet. Yeah, and I would record myself answering these. You know, any of those things where there are a series of questions, that is a possibility to do. And lots of teachers like to use the tool Vocaroo, which is I've got on the right side of the screen. Vocaroo is very simple. You can make very simple MP3 audio files. It looks like that on the screen. You just click and record it. The other possibility that people are using now to make these kind of things is Flipgrid, where you make a very simple, quick video thing, okay? So Vocaroo and Flipgrid are two ways. One is audio, for them to make audio recordings. The other is to make video recordings. And the Flipgrid, you'd create a group, and they would just they would record their video, and it would kind of appear in the group with, like you see on that picture there of all the kids. You know, they'd have their little videos. I think you can add icons and things like that and do lots of extra stuff. Okay, so I was teaching a course where for teachers, where we had 30 teachers in this course. It was a language awareness and diploma course, and we had just discovered Flipgrid. And the director of studies said, "Oh, this is so good. We can get them to video the things. It's so much more immediate. It's so good. It's so easy to set up." We set it all up. We were all excited. And then each of us, there were 4 or 5 tutors, we made Flipgrid tasks for lots of the things we did. Okay, what happened? 3 months later, we all regretted this immensely, because if you had like 30 small paragraphs to read, you can read that while you're, you know, sitting on the sofa, or you can read it while you're listening to music, or you can kind of read it bits at a time, and you can read it quite quickly. Once you get 30 video Flipgrid things, it's going to take like way more time to go through those. The other thing that we noticed is that the first time when we did it, the students all did the task where they had to watch other people's things and ask questions. One of us made even a quiz out of what everybody had said on the Flipgrid, and then you had to watch all the videos to answer the quiz. You know, like who said this, who does this, who, etc. So the first time that worked. The second time, the participation went way down. The third time, it went even down further. We started getting a couple of complaints from people saying, "I just don't have time to watch all those 30 videos." Same thing with Vocaroo. "I don't have time," students would say, "to listen to all those different audio files." So if you are going to do this, be aware of that. Tailor the task so they don't have to listen to everything. Be aware also that you may find it hard to listen and watch all of those things, especially if you have multiple classes. So while I think this is a good task to do as a way of doing some of the individual speaking, it does have its drawbacks. Sorry to spend so much time on it. I just wanted to mention that because it's from a bitter personal experience. Okay. Here, though, would be an activity where here's how you would do the activity, how I would do the activity if they were going to record it individually as a coursebook activity for Flipgrid or for an audio or a WhatsApp audio or a Vocaroo. So here, the speaking activity is they have to work in pairs. Yeah. This time I would put them in pair. They need to prepare a short presentation on a room they would like to change. The task is like that a TV program is offering to transform a room in an educational establishment. Yeah. So they need to decide what they're going to change. By the way, you could probably guess what the grammar is. I'm going to give you just to take a look at those two, the task, and guess what the grammar is. You probably are writing it. I can't see what you're writing, but you probably got it right. It's have something done. Yeah. So they have to decide how they're going to have the thing changed. In this one, I would, the task would be they're going to work in pairs. They have to think of 4 ideas. So I give it very specifically. They could include a sketch if they liked. If they're doing on video, they could share with a sketch. And then they record their ideas using either Flipgrid or WhatsApp or Vocaroo, and then share the link. And then after, they have until Friday. After Friday has passed, listen to and watch the other ideas, post a comment in our forum about one other idea that you like and why. So here I have now switched this kind of group activity into a longer one using one of those tools. All right, let's talk about this in general. Before we're gonna move on to breakout rooms and live sessions. This is all asynchronous communication. So asynchronous communication is when each of them can they post things as and when they can. You're not all doing it necessarily at the same time. So some general tips for this, because also before webcamming and video conferencing became really well known, when I started online teaching, it was all asynchronous. We rarely had a live chat system. Sometimes we did with text chat, but most of the time it was asynchronous. So these tips are from a lot longer history of teachers doing this. So the first one is for asynchronous communication, to make sure that they know that you're still there. Yeah, so if you have a forum or you have a group or you have a place together, silence is very loud in online communication. So if someone disappears for a while, people suddenly think, are they coming back? Are they gone? Can I do whatever I want? Just think about if you were in a close contact with a group of people on WhatsApp and then someone doesn't post on that group for like 2 or 3 days. You're like, what happened to so-and-so? Same thing with classes. So the teacher, to show that you're there, post a regular update, even if it's like, hi everybody, da 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 da, or here's a schedule for today, here's a to-do list for today or this week, here's what I'd like you to do, here are some ways that you can improve your English, our class is going to be on this day, etc. Yeah. Try to include personal touches. So like, you know, hope you're doing well. Things are okay here. Sorry I'm late. How's it going, Maria? Etc. You know, include names, use people's names as well. Using names when people have written things and referring especially to things. Example, you like write on the forum, thanks everybody for your contributions. George talked about, you know, this. Jennifer mentioned this. Liu talked about this. Yang mentioned that. So you can sometimes do a summary referring to names as well. That helps people stay motivated and refer to specifically to what they did. There's often jokes of students who are on online classes that they can tell when the tutor hasn't really read, because it's just sort of a bland comment like, good job, well done, everybody. Obviously, you're going to be doing that sometimes, but the more you refer specifically to things, the more you send the message that you are keeping an eye on what everyone's doing and writing. Be encouraging, by encouraging not just in terms of the task stuff, but in terms of attempting at the very beginning, sort of like when people start participating in a forum, I usually put a comment during the first week, sort of like, everyone is doing excellent, you're doing exactly what you're supposed to be doing. That's because in blended classes, I'll see that, and if someone's posted in the right place, I'm like, okay, they're good. And then they come and tell me, they're like, I was so nervous that I did it right, I didn't do it right, you didn't say anything. And I say, yeah, but it was fine. If I didn't say anything, it means it's good. And they kind of look at me like, yeah, but you didn't say anything. So at the beginning, if they're like that, I'm sort of giving encouragement more at the beginning. And then once everyone's into it, then I can let up a bit. Deadlines, super important. Set specific deadlines. The more specific, I find the more my students take it seriously. So if I say this is for the end of the week, they might they'll still try to do it or not. If I say it's for Friday, it gets a bit better. If I say if it's for Friday at midnight Central European time, then it suddenly feels like, wow, okay, this is serious. Some of them are maybe thinking subconsciously, oh, does that mean that the forum will cut off my thing if I don't get it done? So more specific deadline, the better. And establish rules for posting and sharing things. Okay, so this is kind of netiquette we talked about in my last session, the idea of rules on how to behave online. One of the main problems that teachers have had online in forums and asynchronous communication is when one or another student is trying to be funny, or if the teacher tries to be funny and others don't get it. So people can take offense quite quickly. Bear in mind also that if you're all suddenly thrown online, and worse, if everyone's kind of trapped at home, people's emotions are going to be sort of getting more and more frayed. So it's good to set rules about, okay, don't post a thing that's a joke unless we're not going to be including memes about the coronavirus in our classroom chat, please. Please don't tease other people or make fun of people's English. These are all things that have happened to me in groups, so you need to set that rules at the beginning. If things are slowing down, if you're setting a task that is being done on a forum or a task where people have to participate bit by bit in the week, you can always prompt like, hi everybody, still waiting for contributions from many of you. Here's what everyone else has said so far. So that's another way of kind of moving things along. Okay, I'm now moving on to the next part of the thing, which is using a live online synchronous session to do the course book. Okay, so in this, this is, you have your class, so like your school has said, hey, we have a Zoom or an Adobe Connect room. The teachers are allowed to use it. You're going to be doing your classes at regular times. Okay, so in this case, how do you teach the book? I'm just going to grab a book here. How do you teach a book, like this, where everybody is online and you're not able to kind of all do the work? Here, one option that teachers are beginning to do is exploring what lots of people have been talking about, the flipped approach. So on their shared document, they assign the reading and writing work before class. Sometimes, and I want to talk about this in a little bit, even a little bit before class. I'll come back to that. Then the class begins, everyone logs on with their course books in their hands. You use the whiteboard feature. There's often a whiteboard feature in live rooms, or the camera and show things, or you prepare some PowerPoint slides. The students participate by reading parts of the text, reading the rules to the grammar, reading out answers. In Zoom, you can play your computer audio, but if you're using a platform where you can't, or it's not working, you may have to skip the lessons until you can, listenings rather, until you can play those. Yeah, but in Zoom, you can play your computer audio. So if you have the listenings on MP3, you can do a listening like that with them. Yeah. So this requires the web conferencing platform and a social group or email or forum to assign the work. I wrote at the top there, even only 15 minutes before class. A colleague of mine in Switzerland called Corinne, she, in a group of teachers teaching business English, they would have their live classes, and 15 minutes before they would assign the work. So it's almost like if the class, let's say your class starts from 3 to 4, you almost say the class is starting from 2:45 to 4, because at 2:45 you tell them you need to check your email or check the group or check the thing, because that will be your assignment of the reading, and then you have to do it just before. So this way is sort of like the class begin, like I'm logging in so that I give myself 15 minutes to do the reading and everything. This focuses the flipped aspect, right? So it makes it more like that for the student, their class begins that first 15 minutes they're doing by themselves. They're reading the text or they're reading through the grammar thing. And then once you begin, you assume that they've read it all and you sort of move through the comprehension and other tasks a bit more quickly. I quite liked that as well, because I also thought it was sort of a nice way of like announcing the class, like what we're going to do. So you could say, today we're doing this, this, and this, and this, yeah? You still would assign homework at the end as normal, I suppose. Another thing here is another option now, instead of assigning it before, is you have the live synchronous lesson and you display through screen share the digital version of the book. So many course books have a digital version. It's sometimes called the digibook. It's sometimes a code at the front or the back of the book. You can sometimes, there's one, I've got another book here where there's a code at the back of a book like that, where you would have like get an ebook version. Some teachers may have an interactive whiteboard book version of the book. So in that case, you display that and you share that you have that on your screen and you go through the book in that way. Again, getting students to read out key parts and so on and so forth. If you're not sure, you can probably reach out to your publisher rep, who I'm sure most publishers will be willing to help out by getting digital versions of the books into your hands if you're trying to continue teaching with them. Okay, so I've also taught like that with a Zoom platform, and I'm displaying the book as we go. Or sometimes it's been like a PDF of the book, and so I will display it like this. Now, here was a PDF version of the book that I had as part of the teacher's book package, and I would go through it, zooming into things. Now, what I don't have here is I don't have all the tools that one has on Windows. So I want to show Sophie. This is what I want to ask you at the end. If you have something big on the screen like this, and you want to zoom in, because some people are saying, how can I zoom in on something on PowerPoint? If you move your mouse over to the bottom corner, I don't know if you can see that. You can see I've got like the arrows and a pen thing here. So I can use like an arrow to point, to point to things. I can use let's see, a laser pointer, so I can point to things like that there. But if you have Windows, you can zoom. There's a little zoom thing, and I'll ask at the end. I'll ask Sophie to show it because I'm using a Mac, so PowerPoint for Mac doesn't have it, but PowerPoint for Windows does. And then you just click on that magnifying glass and click on the area you want to zoom. So when I did this with a Windows laptop, I would zoom in on that vocabulary activity and then do it with them. Yeah. Oh, Sophie says you can see the icons. That's great. So next to this little icon of the pen and of the sort of the screen thing there is an icon of a question mark. We'll show that on your slide at the end, Sophie. Okay. So that helps you go through either a big document or on PowerPoint, a reading or exercises that you can zoom in on different parts. Okay. Finally, option 5, and now we're going into the full thing, is live synchronous sessions, displaying the book, screen sharing, and now we're trying to do the speaking activities by using breakout rooms, okay? So you need a web conferencing platform. I'm gonna be talking about Zoom and Adobe Connect a bit. A web platform which has breakout rooms. And you announce when your class is, you assign some work before, but in the class, you can set them off to breakout rooms. Before we get to that, let me give you some tips about general live online classes with the coursebook. You will probably find yourself talking a lot more at the beginning. This is common, don't worry about it. But if you do find that's happening, you can start moving to more open pair work. So for example, George, can you ask the question to Jennifer? Whatever. Mia, ask Maria this, or make the sentence with Maria, whatever. Yeah, or Q&A, get them to ask you questions. So, but at the beginning, it does tend to be that teacher talk time moves up because you're talking, you feel like you're just talking to the screen and you're not talking through it. The other thing that I've noticed from teachers in Italy, teachers in Spain, and other language teachers I'm in touch with who've gone on lockdown and stuff, is that they're finding it hard to do the longer sessions. Students are finding it hard to do as well. So live online sessions, lots of teachers are saying they're moving to shorter sessions or 20-minute chunks. If you are still trying to do a 90-minute lesson, good luck. you're going to be, if you're like most of the teachers I've spoke to, exhausted after doing just like one of those. Students will be too. So if you have to keep a 90-minute session or a 2-hour session, move to chunks, put it in chunks, schedule mini breaks. By a mini break, that means you turn off the camera, they turn off the camera, you assign them either a reading or say, get up, get some water, stretch. With younger groups, you could even do a stretching exercise together. Find something in the house that you'll show me that we'll use as a warm-up for the next part, etc. Yeah, so I have mini breaks during the thing. And with bandwidth problems, which is what is happening in Italy and Spain as we all go online together, learners should turn off their webcams. Serious problems, you turn off your webcams and switch to audio. This is all obvious stuff, but I'm saying it anyway. General tips for online classes. Another thing is the first lesson. The first time you're going to do an online live lesson, I would say just spend most of that socializing and getting them used to the platform. So getting them to put something into the chat box, getting them to, if there's a shared whiteboard, draw something on there, prepare a game or simple fun activity. I'll be maybe doing another webinar on games that you can do in live sessions that are good for this. But my first lesson, I would almost write off as just getting everyone in there, just saying hi, making sure everyone's okay, and so on. But then the first 5 minutes of every lesson, and anybody who is taught online will sympathize with this, you almost always have to kind of allow that time for connection problems. It's normal that it's going to be, can you hear me? Can you see me? I can't hear, I can't see, my mic isn't working. I don't know, hold on, I'm going to go out and come in again. I've been doing this for, as I said, as Sophie said, around 15 to 18 years. And ever since we've started doing web connection things, there's always that problem. It's getting better and better, but I just anticipate that at the beginning. So the beginning chit chat. Okay, let's talk about breakout rooms. The two main platforms that use breakout rooms are Adobe Connect and Zoom. Those are the two that I'm most familiar with. There are other ones, I'm sure, that do them. For example, this one we're using here does not. Also, there are loads of you in here, so it's not very easy for me to put you all into rooms. Adobe Connect, there's a little button like that there, which that little button that is circled in pink is the breakout rooms. And then you can drag the learners, so you drag them into the breakout room, so you can assign them. Or you click on this button and they are automatically randomly evenly distributed. Yeah. And then once they're in the rooms, you click start the breakouts, and what happens is everybody leaves the main room and they go into their own individual rooms with audio and video with each other. Okay. Zoom, it looks like this. In Zoom, there is a part over here where it says breakout rooms. If you're the presenter, you would click on that button, yeah? And I'll show you how that works afterwards. And so you could assign them there to breakout rooms. Breakout rooms need to be turned on in Zoom at the beginning. So that means when you get your Zoom account, you need to go to settings. You need to log into your Zoom thing. You need to go to settings, and you need to find your meeting settings. And then, hold on, you need to go to the advanced settings. And there's a part that says breakout room, and you need to turn that click on. So if you're not able to see the breakout room in here, if you don't see it here, it's because it's not turned on. So you need to turn it on in the settings as I put here, okay? And then you can choose how many rooms you assign them to. Once you've clicked on breakout rooms, you will get that you can assign participants. So let's say I have 10, I could assign them into 2 rooms. That's 2 rooms of 5, or 3 rooms of 3 and 1 of 4, or 2 of 3, 1 of 4, etc. Yeah. You can do it automatically. They'll just be automatically bounced into the room, or you can do it manually, where you drag them, like you assign them into the rooms. Once you're happy with it, you click create rooms. What happens is it's very it's very sudden. If you haven't used one before, it's a like if you're a participant, it's suddenly sort of like boom, you're in the room with the other person, and you're like, are we alone here? What's going on? But once you've started the room, you have options. If you click on that option thing down there, you can move them automatically. So that was before we'd chosen automatically. You can click that they are allowed to return to the main session if they want, or that they don't until you bring them back. You can set an automatic timer. So you can say, I'm assigning you 30 minutes, 3 minutes, 2 minutes, whatever, that they close automatically, or you can bring them back. You can have a countdown after closing the breakout room, which means that, because if you don't put the countdown, when you close the breakout room, they could be in the middle of a sentence and it's just like boom. Yeah, so what happens is the countdown means that it stops, and then there's like 10, 15 seconds where they kind of, or 60 seconds, whatever, where they sort of travel back to the main room. Oh, another thing that you can do is, and I don't have it here, is you can broadcast a message to all the breakout rooms. So you can send a message to that appears to all of them. For example, it says, we're stopping in 15 seconds, or you have 1 more minute left. Yeah. The other thing I should mention, sorry, I'll mention this as well. You can recreate the breakout room. So let's say you did one task in pairs and now you want to do it again with different pairs. You recreate it and you mix it all up again, and they go into a new room. So that's a way of putting them into rooms. Let's talk about setting a task before we talk about monitoring, because you can monitor as a teacher. So with Zoom rooms and other ones, one way that you can do is you just like give the task orally. So for example, I'm going to dictate 6 questions, write the questions down, and you're going to ask and answer the questions. Or I'm dictating this, you write it down and whatever. So you could dictate it. You could simply give it to them, give the task from the book. Okay, everybody, you have your books. On page 36, there's a student A and B task. You need to do that there. I'm going to put it in the rooms. I want you to find that task and then do it together. You can share the task on the screen. So if it's something that they don't have, you display it on the PowerPoint, and the teachers simply ask students, take a photo of this. Take a photo of this, these 2 pictures, and then you're gonna, or screen capture it. If you're on your phone, screen capture it, and I put you in the breakout rooms, and you're gonna discuss those pictures. Or you share, and I'll talk about this, you share text files or images in the chat. So just like you have a chat box where you're typing things, in Zoom, I can see what you're typing. In this one, I can't, but in Zoom, I could see, so I could send a message to everyone with the link. I'll see if I can do that here to, I'm gonna put this here like this. I can only send it to organizers. But anyway, I would have shared this before or put it on a slide. So for example, what I would set up for classes is I set up my Google Drive. I had a folder for English class, right? And so for my class, let's say today, I would have a reading, maybe a writing model for the writing thing they have to do, a pair work activity A and B. And I would say, when I put you in the breakout rooms, here's the link. Go to, if you decide who's A and B, A opens pair work activity A document, B opens pair work activity B document, and that's where that's what is going to be your instructions for the work there. Okay. To do that, by the way, I would click on this little button here in case you don't use Google Drive, where you can share things, or if you use Dropbox to share a link, and I would share the link that allows them to look at it. I'm sorry if some of this you're not familiar with, like Google Drive and Dropbox. There's not time for me to kind of go and describe those, so you'd have to kind of go and find help on how to get those. I think it's worthwhile having a shared place where you can share documents and folders with a class. Okay. The other thing that I think is important when you're doing breakout room tasks, even more important in the written instructions, is make them clear. Here are some examples of the kind of clear outcomes. Okay, so just talk about something, yes, can work, but I think we can be better. I think we can do things like make 4 sentences about the picture, or make 5 sentences. This is for lower levels. So give them a clear thing, like 4 sentences. Find 3 things to report back on. You know, read the article, read the paper, find 3 things that you're going to report back on. So give a specific number. Ask 6 questions. Look at the thing. Look at all these questions. Ask 6 questions to your partner. Your partner has to answer. Then switch roles and repeat. Make a list of 7 words you associate with this picture, or 7 words that you think of when you see this, etc. So I'm giving clear outcomes. The reason is when I call them back, I'm going to check back using those. So Yanchi, what were your 6 questions? Give me 3 of your 6 questions, and so on. Yeah, so it's a way of checking those back. In breakout rooms, you can monitor. You can go in and out of the different rooms. So you can drop in on them. Once the breakout rooms, you can drop in there. You cannot record the breakout rooms, I'm afraid, unless you get them to figure out a way of recording it another way, but that seems rather a lot. But so you could just drop in. I will drop in on breakout rooms and see how they're doing. Just check in on them, make sure they're speaking in English, doing the task. If I do that, of course, as usual, especially in the early times, I encourage them. You know, the first time it's always going to be someone, I guarantee someone will be like, am I in the breakout room now? Because everything kind of looks the same. They're just not sure. So it's like, yeah, you are, and you're doing great. You can hear me. Here, say hi to your partner. Good, you're doing great. Okay, now you can begin the tasks. I give a time warning. We're going to finish in 30 seconds. Okay, we're going to finish in a minute. In 10 seconds, I'm closing the breakout rooms. Get ready, finish up, ask your questions, write your words. And I also say, I'm going to be calling on you randomly at the end to report back. Yeah, so this is how I will keep them on task. Teachers who regularly use breakout rooms say that, curiously, they think that sometimes the students speak a bit more than they do in class when there's a kind of the hubbub of everything going on. You know, there's not that hubbub to hide behind. Others say differently. Other features of many breakout rooms, there is a button in the breakout room where participants can call you for help. So there's a button that's like, ask the moderator for help, and you will get a thing that pops up saying, breakout room needs moderator. You can broadcast a message. There's a button, I don't have the screenshot of it at this point, where it says broadcast message to everyone in the breakout rooms. You can move participants to different rooms. When you look at them, if you right click or there's a little arrow button, you can move someone to a room. Yeah, and you can use the, like if you come back, you can go back to the same breakout rooms. They can go back and do the next part, or you can assign them in new pairs. As I showed you, that was the button called recreate, where they recreate a thing. How are we doing on time? Okay, I'm gonna go rather quickly. Here's an activity from a course book that I would do in a breakout room or in a live session, and how I would use a breakout room. The first part is a simple matching activity about sentences, expressions about fear. Maybe I shouldn't have chosen this one for the current times, but okay, well, you get the idea. I would do that as an altogether lockstep, you know, so I would say, read that, give them a few minutes, and I'd say, okay, calling on people who can do number 1, you know, very traditional teacher type thing, call on people individually. Maybe do B, get them to turn off the webcam, so you try to do that and then call on people for that. Part 2, the vocabulary exercise and their back of the book thing they do for after class. Part 3 would be a quick breakout room. I'd say take a photo of that, or if you have the book, you're going to do that in the breakout rooms. I'm putting you into groups of 3 or 2. You're going into the breakout rooms in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. And then I put them in the breakout rooms, go through, and I would also say I need you to report back on at least 3 of the 5 things. I call them all back together and I do my feedback on that. Here's another one. This with they're going to be completing sentences with their own ideas here and writing predictions. This is one of your classic like writing predictions type sequences in a course book. I would get them to add their to do parts A and B on their own, no webcams all together, and I would maybe check back on that, and then I would put them randomly into breakout rooms of 4 to do part C. They just need to decide the 3 most positive predictions, negative. I would probably only choose 2 of these, and I'll explain why. And finally, this would be, this is one of those famous like A and B, pair work A, pair work B. I'm sorry if I'm going quickly. I'm speeding up a little bit here because I'm realizing the time. But this would be what I would have put in my folder. I would have put like A document there, that top one, and B would have the different document. They have two, there's a vocabulary game they have to play in different rounds, a very simple one that we always kind of do, you know, guess the words, give definitions, or use gestures, drawings. I would get them to do at least round one, round two if they can go on video. I would say, here's the link, student A, download your document from that folder, student B, download your document. And then they would do that together in the breakout room. I would go back and check and then report back on at least one definition that they did, one or two definitions. Couple of things that I did a session similar to this with the British Council on last Friday with teachers around the world, around 500 teachers. Here were some of the kinds of questions that teachers were asking. I don't have time to go through all of these. I'll have some questions for your stuff afterwards. Things like, what if they don't listen? That was happening a lot. What if they're doing something else? Let me just address those two. So the one worry that lots of teachers have is like, how do I know they're not watching Netflix on another screen or doing their stuff on their phone or whatever? How do I know that they're listening? I guess the simple question is you don't. We don't know if they're listening. I don't know if they have Netflix on the background. I can tell them not to do that, and I do. I say I can sometimes tell if someone's not paying attention. I will sometimes check in by saying, everyone, please type a word connected to this. You know, like I'll do little things with the chat to make sure they're there, but I can't really force what's going on in their head any more than I can in a face-to-face class where they're all sitting there and I don't know if one of them is daydreaming or not, or if they're surreptitiously looking at their phone. So lots of these questions I think are the same kind of things we have in face-to-face classes and we just deal with, or it's sort of baked into our expectations. You know, some of you may be daydreaming. I deal with that. We know how to do that. Students of younger learners, can parents help them? They're worried about parents being on the other side of the screen, whispering and so on and so forth. Again, it's up to you if you want the parent to be able to participate and help. Don't know really what to say about that. How should I group them was one of the questions we had about breakout rooms. I think this is a similar question that you would ask about face-to-face teaching with pairs. You know, when you were a new teacher and you said, so how do I put them in pairs? Do I put them with friends? Do I group them with strong and weak? And the answer is yes, you can do all of those things. It depends where you are and what the group is and so on. All those same questions apply the same way to online. The last one, what if my webcam suddenly stops working or the internet drops? And this is the one you do have to think about. And I would say have a document or a series of instructions like in place from the beginning saying what happens if X and Y happens, you know, like the class will be canceled or come back in 15 minutes. Establish a protocol of what will happen, because with everyone going online suddenly, these are kinds of things that may happen. So if you have at the beginning of your course, when you've suddenly started going online, a list of protocols, like what to do if, maybe think about setting one of those up to have for the students so that they know what to do. And then just being patient with it. Okay. The last things that I want to end with some nice messages, well, sort of like comforting messages, I guess. Most people are finding that you get less done in a live online class. You don't get to do as much as you would like to. So I think we need to temper our expectations. In the live online class, it takes longer to do the same amount that you would do in the face-to-face class, especially if everyone's getting used to it. However, good teaching is good teaching, and I put this in my last session. Whatever the tool is, a good teacher will still remain a good teacher, and I think that's fine. And I think also that it's good to change. It's okay to change things. If you started with a Dropbox folder and then the school says we have now these new folders that you can use. Okay, well that's fine. Being flexible is part of teaching. You know, just like when you have to change the classroom or like something is broken in the classroom, you have to do something else. So there are going to be bumps. And I think especially in these days, in these times, people understand we can do it. And so I give you, I wish you all the best for this like online teaching adventure that we may all be going on. and maybe some good things will come out of it that'll change our teaching in the future and sort of a more happy marriage between online and face-to-face teaching. Anyway, we'll have to see. That's bringing me to the end. It's 11 o'clock now. I don't know, Sophie, do you want to switch back to your slides? And if there are any questions, I can take questions for 5 or 6 minutes. If people have to go, that's totally fine too. What would you like to do, Sophie?
Yeah, if you're happy to take questions,
Yeah.
then that would be wonderful. People, if you do have questions, just type them in.
Okay.
Um,
By the way, Sophie, you've got your screen now. Can you just move your mouse to the bottom left corner?
yep.
Oh, I don't
Hmm.
see. Oh, there it is. Okay, you see there? Click on the microphone. No, not microphone. Click on that. And now click on, yeah, click on the English Australia logo. Move that.
Mm,
There you go. Yeah. See what she's doing there? If you had
yep.
a page with lots of things on it and you're using Windows, that's how you can zoom in on parts of it. And now right click, I think if you right click or escape,
Yep. Right click.
there you go back. Right click. Okay, so that's how you can zoom in on bits and pieces. It's only with Microsoft after PowerPoint after 2013, and it doesn't work on Mac, my PowerPoint, I'm afraid. Okay, where should I do? Just type on the questions
Okay.
here. Yeah.
Yep. So I can relay them to you. So
Okay.
we have a question about the slide on the live synchronous lesson.
Yeah.
Um, this teacher has said that she doesn't think any of her students would complete any pre-lesson work that she sets. Do you think in the case of less engaged learners, each online lesson should start with a whole class warm-up? Do you have any other suggestions for a way to begin with a less engaged class?
Okay, so the way to be, this is what my colleagues in Switzerland had done as well. So if you know, like this is the thing with the flipped classroom, one of the big criticisms of the flipped classroom is the same criticism people have of homework. Students don't do, the teachers have always complained about students not doing homework. So that's nothing new. The flipped classroom just kind of put the homework first before instead of afterwards. So we still have the same problem. Students who don't do homework after the lesson might not do it before the lesson. So what they did to get around that was they assigned the flipped part, the reading or the before part, 15 minutes before. Now what you could do is you could start the lesson literally and then say, here, I'm now assigning this and this, or what they said is the email and whatever. And then, you know, the email or your class starts at 3. These are the things you have to do and we'll join afterwards, or you do a warm up, and I'll look at another session. I'll look at fun warm up activities to engage everybody, and then give them some time to do the reading. Assign that there. Lots of teachers who believe in flipped and make flipped work would say that's wasting the classroom time. They should do it before. I think both are possible. If you have a class which is not engaged, well, then you're going to get them to do it in the class with you. The other thing is with like the super unengaged students, the sad truth is, like, if you're super unengaged and not willing to do it, they'll find a way of skirting it easier online than it is coming to like, if coming to class, they're kind of slouching off and slacking. Online, it's easier for them to do that. And I don't think we've solved that solution. We've solved that problem rather. So sorry, I can't be much more upbeat than that. But that would be the thing. Assign the things not way ahead of time, but just at the beginning, or do some of it in class, getting them to read parts of it. Again, a whole class warmer, yes, can be a fun thing, and I'll do those in another session.
Okay, great. Another question. In Zoom, when the breakout rooms are set automatically, do the participants always end up in the same breakout rooms, or does Zoom shuffle them?
When they're assigned automatically, once you've done that the first time, if you reassign them to the rooms, they will go back to the same room unless you click on that button, recreate, and that will recreate the rooms with new participants.
Okay, thank you. Someone's asked what they can do when, as a teacher, they ask an open question and no one answers, or if they ask one particular student and then there's just silence.
Okay, this is the kind of question you could ask about face-to-face teaching as well, right?
Exactly, yeah.
I think a lot of these questions is the same kind of questions that we have in face-to-face, and that's totally normal because we're in a kind of new environment. The one
Yeah,
thing I would say
totally.
is that silence is louder online, especially in webcam stuff. So just as you've learned as a teacher to train yourself to give that little bit of extra thinking time to students, it's more anxiety inducing online because you're not sure also if their webcam is stopped or if they're still there. Do you know what I mean? Like, so there's that kind of a, so it's just, I've learned to become more patient and force myself to give the more time. Yeah. I also have a tendency as a teacher to go too fast. So that's something I'm still working on in my own development, is like, going too fast. If they don't answer, like, okay, come back to them later, try somebody else. But I think it's the same kind of thing. The open class pair work, I still nominate in open class pair work. I don't necessarily ask, I think in the online thing, I don't ask questions into the void so much. I tend to nominate more. And then if they're like, I will say at the beginning, if you don't know, just say I don't know, so I can move on to somebody else. Don't know what else I can say about that.
Sure. Someone's asked if students can do collaborative writing on a shared whiteboard.
Yes, yes, I believe you can. In the breakout rooms, I believe you can do collaborative writing on a shared whiteboard. The other thing that they could do collaborative writing, again, I don't know all of your teachers' levels of tech stuff, but I've had them do collaborative writing on a shared Google Doc within the breakout room. So like they've got breakout room open and they've got the Google Doc open on another tab or whatever, and they're doing it on that. And then they either copy paste it or they save it to the class folder or whatever. So, and also you could have, when I shared you the Google Drive, I could have, like, there could have been a thing there where there's a series of pictures on a page. They download that, or they go to that, they open that, and then they make their thing on that. So I would have different groups. They would do their collaborative writing on that document. So I would have prepared those ahead of time. Get ready, by the way, at the beginning of the online teaching, the preparation is going to be a bit higher if you want to do all of these things. That's why I started out from the very simple thing of like, the simple, easiest thing is just assign whatever you can and follow up and change 1 or 2 tasks, to the full kind of like doing it all online. Again, this is a bit different than the training that we do for people wanting to move a course online, because this is all like happening in a hurry. So, okay, sorry, go on.
Yeah, no, thank you. So probably only have time for one last question.
Sure.
Someone's commented that in Australia, many of our students don't have a laptop or a
Okay.
computer, so they're
Okay.
using their smartphone for access.
Yes.
So
Yes.
will that severely limit what can be done?
If you are faced with that kind of case, then probably it'll be a question of thinking about, one, what's going on your slides and how big that is. So if you were following this on a phone or a smartphone, you'll judge on like how good my slides were able to see, or if I put too much on them, then you'll have to adjust that accordingly. Same thing with documents that you share with them. You may be finding you'll be sharing more documents with less things on each of them. If you're still using your course book, then you can, just have like smaller things. You can do a lot of this stuff still via WhatsApp or WhatsApp groups or whatever kind of group you're going to be setting up with them. But yeah, I think you will find it's almost, I would say, look at it yourself. Like, look at the documents yourself on a smartphone or on someone else's smartphone to see how that's going and adjust accordingly.
Okay, now slightly linked to this question is advice for cohorts that have limited digital literacy. Do you have any advice?
Yeah. Find out what tools they're already familiar with and
Mm-hmm.
start with those. I don't think you need to go for the full thing. Lots of teachers are building things out little by little. So if you have a group of limited digital literacy, but they can still do a WhatsApp things, start just making a WhatsApp group and begin with that. Start with like Zoom is good because you don't need to download. Lots of the webinar platforms are good. You don't need to download anything specific for it. You can, but you don't need to. So it's often just a quick link click. Okay, if you have a group that has no computers, no phones, no anything, then you may be stuck. And I would hope that your school would recognize that. But I mean, if there's no way, there's just no way. But otherwise, it would be find out what stuff they're doing and begin small like that, and then add things little by little. I think a lot of us in online teaching before got really enthusiastic about tools and would go really fast. And that's when people were like, whoa, whoa, my students can't. And now with the current situation, we're all having to recognize like how slow you may have to go at the beginning. Yeah. So it's okay to build out slightly. I think that, for example, the Flipgrid and the Buckaroo stuff is harder. Accessing a shared doc maybe isn't so hard as long as you can get on, use a browser.
Okay, great. Yeah, that's really good advice. So, Lindsay, just to finish up, I'd like to thank you once again for the great ideas and for the advice. I can tell that everybody here is really thirsty for knowledge in this space, and there's a real energy around this move to online teaching. So thank you for embracing that with us.
Okay.
And thanks for the positive vibes you've given us about, we can do it, and there's bumps and
You
people
can.
will
We all can
understand
do
that.
it. Like we're all going to be able to do it. You can definitely do it. The thing is and realize everyone's doing it in slightly different ways. So whatever you're doing, you're doing it, right? So even like a WhatsApp group communicating that's already part of it, right? So it's not as mysterious as it may have been once. The other thing is if we are, I don't know if we're doing this other one, Sophie. Do we
Yep,
mention
yeah,
that?
let's definitely. Yep.
We're going to try to, where Sophie and I were talking, we're going to try to set up another one. The first one that I gave was about getting online in a hurry and sort of setting up your general course hub and like general principles and stuff. This was more about using your course book and the bits, the nuts and bolts of using breakout rooms. But what we'd like to do next is practical fun activities you can do. And I've got two groups. One would be things that you can do in discussion forums or WhatsApp groups suitable for English for academic purposes. So if you're getting them to read and discuss, which is like a favorite university thing, I have loads of options on ways we can do that, which I'll share. And then the other would be fun game warm-up activities, engagement things inside of a live classroom like with Zoom. And I think we're going to be able to do this in Zoom because we've got Zoom set up for English Australia now. So if we can do that, I don't know if I'll be able to play these games with you if you are like 300 or 500 people. That might be a bit ambitious, but I could talk you through some of the kind of games activities that I do, give you some ideas on that in a future session next week.
Yeah, great. So that session is going to be happening next Tuesday at 8 p.m. So same time as tonight.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, Lindsay. Well, thank you again. And thank you again to everybody for coming. And hopefully we'll see some of you next week.
Okay, everybody. See you next week. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.